Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed Mr. Green's video. So now you should have the big picture about what natural law theology is about. I'll now dig a bit deeper now into Thomas Aquinas' natural law theology. Recall again, this is that following nature, especially our rational human nature, is morally right. Going against nature, especially our rational human nature, is morally wrong. And when I last left you, we had seen Thomas Aquinas, had baptized Aristotle with the introduction of God. So this is creating the transformation from natural teleology to natural law theology. And again, we have the first component. Nature acts for a purpose that God has planned for it. And now, since God is the master planner, the master designer, the master blaster, the master lawgiver, Aquinas provides an analysis of 4 different types of laws that I had you guys read about. And he's showing how each of these different types of laws relates to God's plan for the universe and for its occupants like us. Now, the first of these 4 laws is the eternal law. The eternal law are the general laws that govern the entire universe and everything within it. So now, the eternal law includes the laws of math, logic, science, but also it includes the laws of human nature and psychology, sociology, those social sciences, if you will. But again, the eternal law, the laws that govern all of existence, from planets to people, all and everything in between. And again, all the planets and the people and everything in between are being directed by these laws created by God, again, to fulfill the purposes that God has set for them. So inanimate matter, plants, non-human animals, they just do their purposes usually without much thought or without much control. At the best, it's just instinct. Or if it's like plants or, rocks and things, they're not even thinking about it. They're just doing it. So all those beings that aren't humans, they are slaves to the eternal law. They are just doing their best to obey it without thinking about it because they don't have reason. Because that's how we're special. Aquinas says that humans, like us, we can participate. We can participate with the eternal law in 2 different ways. 2 ways in which we humans are special. God made, as Mr. Green said, God made us awesome, and he wants us to be awesome. And being awesome allows us to participate in the eternal law in the ways that other beings, other animals or plants or whatever cannot. We can participate 2 ways again. The first way comes from the fact that God has given us some of his or her, why did I use his? I've been using her so well. Oh, well, her rationality so that we can come to know the eternal law. That's right. Animals can't know the eternal law. Plants, obviously, and rocks can't know the eternal law. They just obey it without thinking about it because they can't think like we can. We have reason. We can think about it so we can come to actually know and understand the eternal law. And that's the first step to humans having great power and dominion over nature because we can understand these laws. And so we can use this understanding to better fulfill our needs. So for instance, we can use the laws, the eternal laws of human biology that we can use to create medicine, for instance, or we can use our knowledge of physics to build bridges or program computers or whatever, right? Our knowledge of the world is so powerful that it gives us control over things in ways that animals don't. And in addition, not only are we rational, this is the second way in which we can participate in the eternal law, is God gave us free will, the ability to make our own decisions. So we are not slaves to the eternal law in the way that animals or non-human, anything but us is. Now, of course, we are slaves to certain laws. For instance, like those of mortality and death, we cannot change that. We are all going to die. Spoiler alert. I hope you know that already. Otherwise, I'm going to see you, you're going to be smoking a cigarette. You're reading your French. You're like, oh, oui. I am going to die. Why am I taking ethics? Yeah, I don't know either. Why am I teaching ethics? I'm with you. Yeah, we are going to die. There's certain laws of the eternal law we cannot break. And similarly, I should say we can't break law. We cannot break the laws of math or logic. 1 + 2 will equal 3. We're kind of slaves to that as well. But we're not slaves to everything in the eternal law. Our free will allows us to participate in a very special part of the eternal law, because these are the laws that are related to human behavior, and we can break these. Though Aquinas, and Mr. Green mentions this as well, all sane people, according to Aquinas, have certain instincts or inclinations to satisfy or obey these laws. But we can violate them. I mean, for instance, we all have instincts to eat and procreate, and Mr. Green calls these the basic goods of survival and procreation. Yeah, we have instincts and inclinations to eat and procreate. That's how we were made. But of course, we can choose to abstain. We can fast, or we can choose not to procreate. We can be or we can just be selective in how we do it. We only eat the finest foods, and we only procreate with those we love. Whatever, right? We can choose how to do these. That's our free will involved here. And so similarly, Aquinas assumes that all sane adults have inclinations towards goodwill and benevolence towards others. He thinks goodwill and benevolence are instincts. And again, Mr. Green calls these the basic goods of living in society and avoiding offending others. Though, of course, people have free will, and so sometimes they will choose to ignore these basic goods and be jerks. But as Mr. Green says, we sometimes just forget to be awesome. And so we're not nice and benevolent to others. But again, these aspects are tied into the natural law. So we have the eternal law. We can participate in the eternal law because we can learn it and then devise ways of then harnessing it and controlling things, with medicine and other technological advances, say. And then we can also participate through our free will. And now the part where we can actually participate and have control, that's the natural law. The natural law is the part of the eternal law dealing with the behavior of beings who have reason and free will. And that's what then Mr. Green talks about, how we can use our reason to understand that, creatures with reason and a free will, they care about procreation, about life, about society, about shunning ignorance, the whole list of basic goods. Yeah, we can reason about that and discover, we have inclinations towards all these things, though we're not slaves to them. We can sometimes forget because we have free will. So we're concerned about what is natural for beings with a free will. And so we see things like drinking to intoxication. That is unnatural. Why is drinking to intoxication unnatural? Because it corrupts our reason. The purpose of reason is to guide our actions. And so it's unnatural to deprive ourselves of that by getting drunk. So getting drunk is going to be bad. Theft. Theft is also unnatural because this rejects the basis of social life. We saw that. That's a basic need that Aquinas thinks we all have, because the purpose of society is the development of each one of us. And so it's unnatural to break social bonds through theft. So theft is unnatural. Now let's get a little more controversial. Contraception. Oh, a good Catholic boy Aquinas is. Contraception is unnatural because contraception prevents reproduction. The purpose of intercourse and sex is reproduction, so it is unnatural to have sex without being able to have children. So contraception is unnatural. And so, of course, now we're really close to the final step of this part of the natural law, because, of course, the natural law identifies the morally good with the natural, because the natural law is, for Aquinas, the laws of morality. Once we understand those basic goods Mr. Green mentioned, we understand that's where our inclinations drive us towards. And then it's our duty, our moral duty, to do those things well, to fulfill those purposes. Because again, we've seen this repeatedly with Aristotle. A good thing fulfills its purpose well. If I'm born with teeth that can't tear food apart, I have bad teeth and probably need to see a dentist. I hope I don't. But it's the same thing. If I steal, my behavior is not natural. I'm a bad person because I'm breaking the brotherhood of humans. I'm destroying the bonds of social life. So the good is natural and the evil becomes unnatural. And so the natural law is what determines morality. When we act in accordance with the natural law, we are acting in accordance with nature, with our proper desires and inclinations of a rational being with free will. That's acting in accordance with nature. So when we obey the natural law, we're acting in accordance with nature, and we're acting in accordance with God then, because our God's plans and purposes, because God's what gave those things to nature. So when we act in accordance with nature, we're acting according to God's plans and God's purposes. And so therefore we are morally good because, of course, going against nature, going against God's plans is, of course, a sin and immoral. Aquinas is a good Catholic boy. He knows all this, right? And so this is giving us then the second big part of natural law theology. Recall the first part was that nature acts for a purpose, that God has planned for it. And now we have the second part, that what is natural is morally right and good. And as I said, we can disobey the natural law. Aristotle, Aquinas knows things can go wrong, but we still have those inclinations and instincts to obey and pursue those seven basic goods that Mr. Green mentioned. And especially Aristotle says, once we use our reason and see the sense of these things, we will know how, that we should be pursuing them, that they are good. And so again, Aquinas says, just simple study nature, you'll learn the purpose of what sex is about, not just birds and bees, but it is for reproduction, says Aquinas, and you'd learn that therefore non-reproductive sex is unnatural and therefore bad. And let me tell you what, my mom's family is very Catholic, and she has a lot of brothers and sisters. The family reunions are freaking huge, because not only does she have like 7 brothers and sisters, that means she has like 7 or 8 uncles just on that side of the family, and they all had like 7 or 8. Oh my God, these family Catholicism, yay! So. What was I talking about? Again, there's no special need in all this, though, for religion or to be religious to understand the natural law. As Mr. Green said, God has given reason to all of us, believer and non-believer alike. And so anyone can use their reason to discover the natural law for themselves. And so this now leads to the third part, the final part of natural law theology. So we have 3 parts. Nature acts for a purpose that God has planned for it. What is natural is morally right and good. And 3, the third part that I've just now gone over, reason can come to understand the natural laws of morality. But before we just skedaddle away from Aquinas, he does talk about 2 other laws, which I think are important, again, for linking up and comparing and contrasting from the natural law. And so after he talks about the eternal law, and then that part of the eternal law that's morality, that's the natural law, he talks about the third law, human law, the laws that people actually enact, usually through government, say. And he says, though, of course, to be a true law, a true human law, it has to be done according to nature. But he says we still need the human law because the natural law is very general. Human law fills in the gaps that might come from applying a general law, again, the general natural law, to particular situations, particular societies, particular cultures. So in some cases, these laws may vary radically from community to community, like what side of the road to drive on. Remember, those were the mores. Aquinas realized, there'll be a lot of mores, just habits and customs that a society has just for convenience, like what side of the road to drive on. Yes, those are human laws, only driven by the natural law for safety. There's lots of ways to have safety. One of them is all agreeing on what side of the road to drive on. So again, a very natural law concerned with life and safety. But now we need specific laws that carry that out. So those can be very general mores. But in other cases, the laws should not vary so much because the natural laws definitely doesn't like murdering innocents or murder probably at all. And so the law shouldn't vary that much. The law should be, again, against murder, though the law might vary in terms of what kind of punishments are allowed. But again, now we're not doing mores, we're doing morals about how we ought to treat each other. And when it comes to morals, that's the natural law's baby, right? That's what natural law does. It's about morality. And so Aquinas says there shouldn't be much variance, though maybe the punishment will be different. Maybe some communities lock up their murderers with life sentences. Maybe other communities execute their criminals. By the way, as a good Catholic boy, Aquinas would favor locking them up forever because good Catholic boys know that the death penalty is also wrong because even the life of a criminal matters. It's very interesting. So, anyway, I'll leave it there. While I may not be Catholic now, I was raised it, and I'm very familiar, obviously, with it. My family was much smaller than my mom's. Why am I talking about this? I don't even know. But again, reason is important to Aquinas because it's what we need to take that general natural law of like, say, safety, and then apply it to, okay, let's all drive on the same side of the road. To take the reason, murder bad, and then apply it to the human law here about, okay, well, we're going to make laws against murder and have various sorts of punishments to prevent it. So reason is so important for human law to function because it is supposed to model the natural law as best as possible. And if a law goes against the natural law, that human law is actually no law. It's just unjust and wrong. Finally, the last type of law, because there has to be some religion in here, right? I mean, the laws so far have been about reason and that anyone could know, but what about the believer? And this is the divine law. The divine law are the laws that must be satisfied for a human being to attain eternal salvation. So it's knowing that there's a heaven and hell, the laws about that, how you get into one or the other, the laws involving us having an immortal soul, because these Aquinas says cannot be revealed by reason. Reason will not discover heaven and hell, nor will reason discover an immortal soul. He says these must come from divine revelation. The beatific vision of God hits you in a moment of inspiration where all things are revealed to you. It's very poetic, I guess. But that's why we need a divine law. The divine law that the believer is trying to understand about heaven and hell and how to attain eternal salvation for their immortal soul. And so the natural law does not cover that. We need the divine laws of salvation, which the believer wants. And so, but look, Aquinas does think that we do need that divine law because it can help direct human actions. It's just that, we're limited. Human reason and human laws are limited. We're finite beings. So we need this divine law to help us. Because, for instance, Aquinas says humans can't understand divine eternal happiness, right? Our minds could never comprehend what that would even be like. So we need divine law to show us how to attain eternal happiness. Human reason obviously can go astray in making the human laws, led by bias and other bad things. So we need a divine law that is always correct to act as a source of guidance for human law. And human laws cannot enforce what Aquinas calls interior motives. The human law can control your actions, but it can't control your beliefs. Yeah, I'll obey the law, but I can think it's garbage, right? But the divine law is supposed to actually motivate people to do the right thing for the right reasons. So I help you, not because I expect a reward or avoid a punishment. I help you because I see it as just a godly, goodly thing to do to others, to help them. And that's why I do it, because it's the right thing, not because I don't want to get arrested or punished or shunned or whatever. And as he says, human law cannot curb all evil. Only the divine law can curb all evil. Though, of course, as you might expect, for a good Catholic boy like Aquinas, that curbing of evil may have to happen in the afterlife where the evil goes to hell. Yeah, in this world, we're a mess, right? This vale of tears. Anyhow, so we have three types of laws established by God: eternal, natural, divine. Three types of laws. These ultimately all are made by God as the master planner, the master designer, the master blaster, the master lawgiver. And these three laws, eternal, natural, divine, are all supposed to be covering the purposes that God has for the universe and the purposes he has for us. And then we have that fourth human law, which is our attempt, of course, to model the natural law for our communities. And though, of course, we'll mess this up with unjust laws and other things. So, of course, for morality, though, morality ultimately is with the natural law. And just one last time, the three parts of natural law theology we've now covered to death, I hope, are nature acts for a purpose that God has planned for it. 2, what is natural is morally right and good. 3, reason can come to understand the natural laws of morality. And so we have seen how these ideas originated in Aristotle. Watch the earlier videos of this module. But now we can see how God has been added to the mix by Thomas Aquinas. We've gone from a teleology to a theology about the natural law. Almost done. I do want to just finish up with a quick discussion of some challenges for natural law theology. We always got to cover the problems. But I think it's snack time. I'm getting my tummy's growling. So why don't you get your snack, get a glass of water, and when you come back, we'll wrap this module up.